Good morning. This is a poem that I wrote called The Bible Belt and the Universe. The allure of church in my early years was the allure of God's everlasting love through a medium underappreciated by my parents and other adults of the church, the cuisine. From the grape juice of communion Sundays to the donuts, popcorn, or cookie cake of Sunday school, God's love was so simple to understand when I accessed it through my empty 11 o'clock service stomach. Ah, the so-called Bible Belt of America, densely churched Birmingham, full of God bless hers, and the phrase thoughts and prayers uttered so frequently that we must be praying and thinking all day. The stained glass windows and crowded parking lots are almost sublime, as if the universe has also stopped squirming, as I do, sitting in the 8th pew on the right as the preacher walks up these steps to begin his sermon. Questioning our place in the universe is something we do often without realizing it. Sometimes the answer is quite simple. Clearly, I'm standing right here in front of you, so isn't that my place in the universe? Well, kind of. But the universe likes to complicate things, likes to spin you around before asking you to pin the tail on the donkey that is everything you have ever wanted for yourself. The universe never lets you get it right. Life looks like a sine graph in math class, or a wavelength, where we are constantly ebbing and flowing up and down with different frequencies, thrown and tumbling in a world that is constantly defining our role in it. The concept of our place in the universe can never truly exist, because we are constantly changing places. We are the blind navigators, turning our radio dials, trying to get a signal, any sort of concept of where we are going, rowing our boats with no clear direction on a river that has no end and no beginning in sight. But the beautiful, sublime, grape juice on a Sunday morning part of the story is that God is the current, defining our place, our every stroke, our every movement if we trust him to navigate. In today's passage, Paul is telling the Corinthians how they should prepare themselves for his return as he advises them to be courageous, stand firm in your faith, do everything with love. Now, Corinth was not exactly the religious capital of the world. In fact, it was almost a biblical sin city. While Birmingham is quite the opposite, being the most densely churched city of the country, we often fall into the same traps as well, placing our hopes in and focusing on things of this world. I've found that we often want to put ourselves into boxes. For most of my life, I have tried to fit into a box of being a soccer player or a debater. But the problem with putting ourselves into binary places is that we can never stay in them. I can never define or box myself because the truth is that I'm not always a soccer player or a great debater or a responsible daughter or even a good person. Even those of us who believe that we are always right or always good at what we do will have our bad days. The universe never lets us get it right. When Paul speaks to the Corinthians, I think he's also helping them find their place in the universe, except defined not through worldly ideals, or even their aspirations for themselves, but through God. We can do the same thing. Sure, our lives are constantly changing, and there are a lot of things that we cannot control. But if we place our faith in something that never ends, never fails, never leaves us, then regardless of what the universe is doing, we can know who we are, know where we are. But that does not mean it's always going to be easy. I found that being courageous is often harder than it sounds. It's hard to speak out, often being the only girl in the room, hard to address issues that you see in your life when other people don't see them happening. Hard to believe in yourself when sometimes you mess it all up. But throughout the Bible, time and time again, people like Jesus and Moses and other biblical figures place their faith in God and step outside of their comfort zones and outside of social norms. Even Paul does this too. Clearly, he is not the one partying every night in Corinth. Having courage is something that is hard, but if we place our faith in God, he can empower us to step out of our comfort zones and make positive differences. That's why Paul tells us that we need to stand firm in our faith, because it is constant. It remains throughout every life event, every heartbreak, every mistake. It is still there if we come back after saying, "See you later." And that is why we can do things with love, because we can know who we are even if the world is changing our roles in it. We can support those around us and show them the grounding love of our faith. Last year, I felt really unsure of what I was doing with my life. I am still very unsure of what I'm doing with my life. But in that, knowing that there is always something supporting me means that I can support other people and not be afraid of the changes that the universe will throw at me. With support directly through Christ and through fellowship, we can take in everything the world has to offer, the good and the bad, and push out everything we offer into the people and into the world around us. Faith can be your place in the universe, regardless of where you go, and you can share it with the people around you. I wanted to end with a passage from my favorite poem, "My God, It's Full of Stars," by the current U.S. Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith. Perhaps the great error is believing we're alone, that the others have come and gone, a momentary blip, when all along space might be bursting at the seams with energy we neither feel nor see, flush against us, living, dying, deciding. They live wondering if they are the only ones, knowing only the wish to know, and the great black distance we flicker in. Maybe the dead know, their eyes widening at last, seeing the high beams of a million galaxies flick on at twilight, hearing the engines flare, the horns not letting up, the frenzy of being. I want to be one notch below bedlam, like a radio without a dial, wide open so everything floods in at once, and sealed tight so nothing escapes, not even time, which should curl in on itself and loop around like smoke, so that I might be sitting now beside my father as he raises a lit match to the bowl of his pipe for the first time in the winter of 1959.